And now, live from Level 5 Productions on the island of Milleronia, it's The Larry Miller Show. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and everyone who knows that sometimes you can smile at a funeral. Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Larry Miller Show. I'm Larry Miller, but in a way, aren't we all? And boy, oh boy, is it a happy day here. Not on Milleronia. Again, the Colonel and I are back on the mainland at stately Miller Manor, and there are, well, we have a bunch of fellows working on the whole backyard, and they drilled up a bunch of the concrete. I know I've mentioned this already, but boy, it's worth saying again. Anytime you put the two words jackhammer and concrete together, it won't be quiet, and that's okay. And I spoke to one of our neighbors, and who I really like, always have, and I said, boy, I'm sorry, you guys, because they've been great for years and everything, and they always are nice to us, and they say, hey, we're going to have a tree done, so move the car out of the driveway or something, but they always go out of their way. And in fact, he said to me, so what are you doing back there? And I said, to be honest, nothing. We just wanted the noise, and we set up these big columns of rock speakers, and wanted to blast away. And he started to laugh, and he said, so us and the Roger and Pam on the other side. And I said, oh, not them. I don't want to bother them. And he laughed, and I said, if you want, by the way, we're making CDs so that you can have it forever, and just for long trips in the car or something. Put that jackhammer on, and I think it'll make the trip go better. In any case, though, that's why we're all still here, and we're very lucky. And it's just been beautiful here. I miss Milleronia, though, but that music always makes me feel good. Of course, that's the George H.W. Bush Orchestra and the Michelle Kundrat Dancers, or Kundrat. I don't know her yet, and I don't know how to pronounce that, but she's worth knowing it. Featuring boy tenor Brad Simpson asking the musical question, how did the Dungmeister name originate? And if they have one, what does their family crest look like? Good question, Brad. Once again, we have a couple of folks who really come up with great questions. And first of all, by the way, for those of you who don't know, and you should, when, Ollie Dungmeister Sr. ran all the volcanoes here on Milleronia, but then he retired, and his son, Ollie Dungmeister Jr., runs them now. You should know, by the way, that the numbers aren't accurate. That is, every man in the Dungmeister family history is named Ollie, and they go back a long way here on Milleronia. In fact, the Dungmeisters are the only citizens who are natives. No one else is from here. No one. But the Dungmeister family, 100% original natives of this wonderful island. They were here on Milleronia before it was Milleronia, but for many, many years and generations before I came. And I came and I saw the place and I loved the place, and I met with the Dungmeisters and ate at their home. And I don't know what it is I ate, by the way, but how do you not trust people when you meet? They go back so far. And I loved the place. I fell for them and they fell for me. To be honest, by the way, this is just between, us entre nous. They all look alike, and I mean exactly alike. Nothing wrong with that, but they have several portraits, for instance, of the old Ollies going way back. You'd swear the guy showing it to you is the guy in the painting. I'm telling you. And one last thing, by the way, that not good-looking people, but that's just, again, entre nous. And they're a great family, and they're loyal, honest, and committed to Milleronia. If I tell the current Ollie Jr. to toss someone in one of the volcanoes. He doesn't ask when or why. He goes and gets the guy, carries him out, and in you go. So, I mean, that is that, by the way. There's no talking to him along the way. Hey, how about if you don't do this? You're going in. So, good question, Brad, for Brad Simpson. And they do have a family crest, yes. And I have seen it, and I see it whenever I go there. First, let me just tell you, don't ask them about their name, okay? Dungmeister means, what does it mean? It means what it sounds like. You're the master of dung, the master of, well, animal droppings. I know that, and I'm telling you right now, but as I said, don't ask them about it. They don't take it kindly. You ask about their name, I'm telling you, the whole room will get really quiet really fast. And the next thing you know, one of the big cousins grabs you by your shirt and your belt, and there you go, right to the volcano and right in, period, fast, done. And I'm telling you, when I got here, remember first, they had been taking all the dung. This goes back to how they got the name, the Dungmeisters, because they take it and they throw it into the volcanoes themselves for hundreds of years. And when I came here and said I was looking for someone to throw people in the volcanoes, Ollie Sr. said, fine with me, tuck him under my arm, I'm going there anyway. But their family crest, by the way, Brad, is beautiful and has the same printing and colors and a lovely saying in ancient Milleronian of hic soc wic lock, which means, I'll be honest, you should have kept your mouth shut. These are not people to tease or tempt, but they're loyal and they're some of my top aides. And let's be honest, when it comes to throwing people in the volcanoes, would you rather do it? Well, the Dungmeisters are number one to me, and I've given them a medal for it too. And no one else has gotten that medal. And it's all right, it's something I just made. It's just that I invented it, but they deserve something like that. And let me tell you, though, about Michelle Condrat, and I'm sorry I don't know. She sent me a gorgeous portrait that she painted of me, and it's the best gift I've ever gotten. She wrote the nicest letter about me and Colonel Jeff and the show and how she takes things, and with the music, and all I can tell you is we do the same thing every week of mention, you make your fists into, and tighten them up and almost march around to it. We do the same thing. And it's good for you. There's so many nice things. She wrote a beautiful letter, and I'm very grateful. And I'm looking at the portrait now, and we're going to take a picture of it, in fact, and show it to you on our website. And it's just beautiful, Michelle. Thank you so much. And I'm going to hang it. Right now it's leaning against one of the cabinets here at, Stately Miller Manor in the studio. And I'm going to put it on the wall, though. I've never been that much one for hanging pictures of yourself, shaking hands with some guy, and, here's the president of the thing, of the whatever it is. And I don't know why people do that, but this I'm proud of. It's beautiful, and I'm very grateful, and I'm going to hang this here right in the studio where we make the show. And thank you, Michelle. Folks, you guys are pretty good, and so is Michelle. And by Amazon. That's right, Amazon. Still the greatest company in the world. Amazon is the only place that they send us here a percentage of whatever it is you get from them. And that's not the only reason to use them. Well, it is to me, I'll be honest. I think we like that a lot. Hey, we got a check from Amazon. Good. Terrific. And maybe I'd get a little gold ribbon and put that around Michelle's portrait. But they are a terrific group. And by the way, you can go to Amazon, get anything in the world you want. What better time of the year, for goodness sake, when you're going to buy gifts for people, what better time than to go to Amazon? Yes, you can get there. Any computer, any iPhone, sure you can get there. Don't do that, though. Don't waste your time. Go to our website, LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the mountain? Tom Mix. Oh, pardon me. Should have had the fish. But you know what, by the way? That it just makes me think, it makes me so happy to know you can go. We have a banner on the website that says Amazon on it. Click our banner. We'll get you there. Click the banner and then go take a nap. Lie down in a comfy chair, maybe one of those big lazy boy chairs. Just lie down. You don't even have to turn the TV on. You know, lay yourself down there and close your eyes and just enjoy the afternoon. We'll get you to Amazon. And boy, thank you. You know what? You're right for them and they're right for you. Thanks, guys. Everyone at Amazon, thanks. And thanks, folks, well, for going there. And that brings me to my favorite part of the show, the joke of the week. Everything makes me happy. That's why, again, we're so like Colonel Jeff and I were saying, we're just like Michelle. We react to the same things again and again. What better part of life than to find something you like and keep liking it? And this is a good joke, though. This made us giggle. And so here it is. There are three brothers who live together, and they're older fellas. They're 92, 94, and 96. And they live in the same house. And one early evening, the older brother is going to take a bath. He's the 96-year-old one. And he draws the bath upstairs there. And he just picks up his foot and starts to put a toe in the water. And he said, oh, wait a minute, I can't remember. And he calls out to the 94-year-old brother who's downstairs and says, did I just take the bath or am I about to take the bath? And the 94-year-old brother says, I don't know. You know what? Hey, just stand there, and I'll come up and I'll help you out. And he says, all right, here we go. And he gets up, the 94-year-old brother, and he starts walking up the stairs there. And he gets halfway up the stairs, and suddenly he stops, and he thinks, wait a minute, was I going up or was I going down the stairs here? And he says, oh, for goodness sake. And then he calls down to the 92-year-old brother and says, hey, was I going up or down the stairs? And the 92-year-old brother tisks to himself and says, boy, I hope I never get that senile. And, knock on wood. And he knocks on the table and then he calls out to his, the 94-year-old, all right, I'll come and help the both of you as soon as I see who's at the door. I hope you like that. We thought that was cute. And as always, if you like a joke, keep it going. It's actually like great music. A good joke should be in the world. Tell it to someone, to your family, to your loved ones, or your friends. But keeping jokes alive is a good thing to do. And that brings me to my second favorite part of the show, the Poetry Corner. And then somehow no better time of the year for a good string quartet like that either. You know what? I have read this one. And the Colonel thought, you know what, let's do it again. It's written by Mary Elizabeth Fry, who's a wonderful, interesting woman. She lived from 1905 to 2004. And she's from Baltimore, a housewife and florist. And this poem was very famous, but she wasn't known as the author till the 1990s. And it's called Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep by Mary Elizabeth Fry. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there, I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. Isn't that lovely? Good for you, Mary Elizabeth. And there's a reason I think that poem was so well known and so famous, and I'm glad you finally got credit for it. But it's, wow, what a good use of words, and what nice images, and what a good thought. Because it's true. I believe that anyway. You know what? I'm not there. I did not die. Do I know these things? Well, yeah, actually, I do. But I can't tell you how. But I do. I believe it. And I hope you do too. And that brings me to my third favorite part of the show, the magic movie moment. Boy, this is a good one too. It's from 1931, Little Caesar, directed by Mervyn LeRoy, starring Edward G. Robinson, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., and so many others. It's a great cast. And folks, this movie was critics and the people alike. This was the first outright gangster film coming out of Hollywood. Little Caesar, and people loved it. They ate it up, and it's still very popular with, well, critics and everybody around. And folks, it's just terrific. And if I remember correctly, it's in black and white, too. This is not a color movie. See it. And there's a magic movie moment. This movie has one of the most interesting parts in it that comes at the end. One of the greatest lines in all of Hollywood history. Because it's when Edward G. Robinson, who plays Rico, big tough guy who keeps getting tougher and tougher and tougher, but he's a bad guy. And he gets shot at the end by the police, and he staggers over, and he leans against a building. He's on a couple of steps, and he leans against it and says, "Mother of mercy, is this the end of Rico?" And, well, he's such a great actor anyway. But that last line is interesting. It was written as Mother of God, is this the end of Rico? But in those days, remember this is 1931, and it's in what they call the pre-code era of movie making, so that there were standards and this and that, and well, Mother of God is a very religious phrase, and it's a very religious name. And they said, well, you can't say that. The folks at the studio said, you can't say that. And so they rewrote it to, Mother of Mercy, is this the end of Rico? And you know what? That has become, to many, many people, and I'm one of them, one of the greatest last lines in all of Hollywood movie making. And delivered by, how do you beat Edward G. Robinson? Good Lord. And everything he's been through in this movie as Rico. And that's his last thought. And it's half a prayer, and it's half of just about him. And see it, folks. If you haven't seen Little Caesar, please see it. You'll be glad you did. And join the club of folks who know it's the first and greatest gangster movie ever made. And boy, did that open the door to, oh, for goodness sake, James Cagney, Humphrey Bogart, so many others. And Cesar Romero, oh, so many others. But you know what? That last line really ties this up with a bow. Mother of mercy, is this the end of Rico? And that's been in my mind actually since, and today I was watching the funeral for President Bush 41, George H.W. Bush. and today, and in Washington. And, it's funny, folks, that I never talk about anything political on the show because I never quite see the point. You know what? You can listen to that guy. Well, he's got a point. And then listen to that guy. Well, he's got a point too. And I never really understood how they get so mean at each other, so vicious, frankly, at each other. But this man wasn't like that. And I learned some things about him today. Well, I didn't know. Well, you think back, you don't agree with this, you agree with that. It doesn't, at this point, it doesn't matter. He was, good Lord, 94 years old. Do you know he was the youngest fighter pilot in all our armed forces in World War II at 18 years old and flew 58 missions? Now, that's not what he comes from, a wealthy, famous family. That's not what his father, who was Senator Prescott Bush, wanted him to do. But he said, Dad, I'm going to fight for our country. And he enlisted. And you know what, folks? What were you doing on your 20th birthday? Well, on George H.W. Bush's 20th birthday, he woke early on the aircraft carrier to make a bombing run over a Japanese base. When he got there, there was a wall of flak exploding constantly in front of them all. And it was a wall of flak, and it didn't stop. It kept getting worse and worse. And Bush's plane was hit. And he thought, well, this is trouble. There was smoke all over, and the cockpit was full of it. And he thought, this plane's going down. But he kept going, on fire. And the cockpit full of smoke, got to the target, dropped his bombs, turned, and flew back out to sea. He told his other two crew members to hit the silk, and they did. They bailed out, but he stayed with it till the plane couldn't fly anymore and crashed into the Pacific. And, well, a day or so later, he got a submarine, rose out of the sea there, out of the ocean, and rescued him. And, it made me think, hearing that, whatever I was doing on my 20th birthday, it wasn't that. And then, but this guy, what a guy. He ran for the Senate and lost, and ran for the House of Representatives and won, served 2 terms in the House, was appointed United States ambassador to the United Nations, then the head of the CIA. Then he ran for president in 1980 in the primaries against Ronald Reagan and lost, but Reagan asked him to be vice president, which he was for 2 terms, 8 years. Then in 1988, he ran and won and became president. And one of his friends said today in one of the speeches, he was never much of a public speaker, and he knew it, apparently, but he just wasn't that exciting, and he knew it. But in person, the guy said, he was smart and funny and spoke like a poet. And, you never know about people. He had quite a life in public, quite a life in public service. Brian Mulroney was there. He was the Prime Minister of Canada during that same period. And he and Bush got to know each other, and they became friends. They got to like each other, and then like each other very much. And they were friends, their whole lives. And Brian Mulroney told a story, again, speaking in the National Cathedral there, that about meeting George at the G20 summit in France, I think it was. But this is their first time, as big leaders of big countries, going to something like a summit like that. And it's one of those where the table itself is 15 feet wide. And they got, how many folks do you have around that table there at one of those summits? And everyone got up to say something. And every leader got up to the podium there to say something about why they were there and what they were doing and what they wanted. And they were all very short speeches, which is the way it should be. if you got 22 guys there, who needs to listen to someone go on and on? So they're very short, and you move it along, and then they're going to get to whatever the meetings are to discuss this or that or a treaty or whatever. Who knows what these folks do? But as Brian Mulroney told the story, then the president of Iceland got up and made his speech, and he said his speech went on and on and on and on, and it was crazy. I mean, it wasn't at all interesting. And this guy didn't stop. He goes on and on and on, and people are looking at each other, just glancing at each other, going, okay, who asked this guy? But you know what? They went on. Finally, they took a break. The guy was still going, and they took a break. They said, hang on a second. And so they needed a break just to stand up and have a glass of water. And that's when, as Mulroney said, that's when George Bush walked over to him around the big table and just said, Brian. And they shook hands, and yes, George. And he said, Brian, I just learned my first lesson about international relations. And he said, what's that, George? And Bush leaned in and said, the smaller the country, the longer the speech. And, well, that was I thought that was pretty funny. How do you like that? You're at the big fancy table with big fancy chairs, but that's a pretty smart thing to come up with. And you know what, though? What the Navy pilots used to say stood out to me. It's a word they all use, and it's a word they made up. And the word is Cavu. Maybe you've seen that today or in some of the coverage here, but it's C-A-V-U. And that's what they really want to say to each other, because it stands for Ceiling and Visibility Unlimited, which is, well, if you're a fighter pilot, that's what you want to hear and that's what you want to say. But, yes, there's an additional element to that, and it's more figurative. You know what? I think maybe that's just what happens when you pass on and you start, well, you get to see your wife again and hold hands and hug the daughter who got sick and died so young. And, well, at that point, I think the ceiling and the visibility are unlimited. So I hope you do too, folks, and I hope that's what you get, because we know the same things, that Homer is Homer and Pluto is a planet. So remember, as always, if you walked out of bed today and had a job to go to and a home to come back to and someone there who cares about you, folks, the game's over and you've won. And you don't need fancy chairs at a fancy table to know that. Be well, and we'll see you here next time.